reservation is in California, and it's near Coachella.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Which everybody knows where Coachella is.
Yeah.
Well, it's Riverside County.
All you have to do
California.
is find the white girls in weird rave wear.
Okay. People probably know about this tribe of Indians in this country without knowing who this tribe of Indians are. And there's a really good reason for it. In the 1980s, the Cabazon and there's another tribe, the Morongo. I really hope I'm saying that right. They both they were on a completely different reservation. They both had small bingo parlors on their land, and the state of California came in and said, "You are violating gambling laws, and we are going to shut you down."
And they said, "Screw you, this is our land."
And that's exactly what they said. And they went to court, and in 1987, they won against the state of California. And it wasn't too long after that that you started seeing Indian gaming casinos pop up all over the United States.
This is a weird thing because to me that seems so ubiquitous. It's been around my entire life.
Yeah, when I was a kid, you didn't see that stuff.
It's so weird. It's weird to conceptualize.
I remember where I grew up.
Yeah.
The casino starting just as I was graduating from high school. Like there was none of them there, and then all of a sudden they were all over that portion of the state.
Yeah, it is.
All at once.
It's totally weird. Yeah, because when we would drive, to family vacations and things like that, we would pass a bunch of them, and for me, it's just always been a thing.
Yeah.
It's weird. I guess I didn't realize it was that recent.
It is pretty recent. Yeah.
According to Ken Thomas, the guy who wrote The Octopus.
Oh yeah, that book he read.
Yeah. Boy, that was a great book. According to him, the tribe was greatly influenced by outsiders, both before the case and after. And those outsiders kind of took control of the leaders, of the tribal council. They got all the power. And from the notes that Danny left, one of the people who was of interest was a guy by the name of John Nichols. And according to Danger Man, Nichols, who was involved doing all this stuff on the reservation, was bringing international business associates to the reservation to talk business. I'm guessing illegal business, and I'm guessing because they were on sovereign land, they were okay to talk about illegal things. The reason for that, I don't understand it. I'm going to be very honest when it comes to the stuff that happens with this tribe on this reservation based on the claims by Ken Thomas. I am a little dubious because I can't back them up anywhere else. I will tell you the things that I have read, but I cannot substantiate most of it.
Oh no! And again, this stuff, I believe, wasn't this stuff that the Danger Man, aka Ricano Scioto, told him?
Yes. Yeah. So the source is driving him to some strange links that he is then either making the connection of on his own or being told very directly that there's a link.
Well, they would be hard to substantiate, too.
Well, and if it's on sovereign land, I can kind of get that. I can also see when it's coming from Danger Man, it's hard to substantiate. But here's what's going on the reservation according to Thomas.
Okay. According to Thomas, according to Danny, according to Danger Man, right?
Correct.
So there's
it's a game of telephone.
Right, okay.
Absolutely. There were illegal dealings, and I don't know exactly what those dealings were. There was arms manufacturing. There was, and this is evidently true, they were selling cigarettes by mail off the reservation, so no taxes.
That's standard operating procedure.
And they started to sell booze by mail without taxes until they got shut down for that.
I like these guys.
They set up a partnership with Wackenhut Corporation.
Is that Wackenhut or Wackenhut?
I'm pretty sure it's Wackenhut.
I like Wackenhut better.
Well, this group is known for security work with just about everybody, and they also do security at prisons. So they're
really upstanding gentlemen.
Yeah, and it's a giant corporation that has just recently, in the last 5 years been taken over by another corporation, and I went to their website and I was trying to do reading on them.
Was it like an image hosting site that had like some weird...
No.
Doesn't that
But
remind
it
you
is
of that?
amazing how sanitized their website is. Like whoever writes their stuff, it's great PR, because I'm reading
of course
something
they
here
do,
and
yeah.
going, what? That doesn't... What? These people don't sound like those people at
Yeah.
all.
Oh, no, they're good at that.
They might not actually be those people. You
They
never
might
know.
not. You're
Yeah.
right.
But they probably are.
Possible. Well, the point about the tribe that really got Casillero going was a murder. There was a gentleman by the name of Fred Alvarez. He and 2 other people were murdered in 1982. Alvarez, at the time, was a tribal leader. And again, this is according to Ken Thomas. And he was killed because he wasn't supporting all of the changes that were taking place on the reservation and with the tribe based on the direction of Nichols. So he kind of tried to stand up to him and was killed for it, is the line that I understand.
Yeah, but was he on reservation land when he was murdered?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, really? Because I was going to say, I mean, Riverside County is in Southern California, so of course he was killed. I mean,
Well, yeah, no, it did. It did happen. I'm pretty sure it did happen on there. But the point is, this whole thing with the reservation can't substantiate any of it. But I'm going to tell you about it because you will read about it in different places. We're going to move forward to the next step in the puzzle.
Yeah, I'm a little off the reservation on this particular theory here.
We're going to go to the next one, which I
one?
know if we don't control him, Joe is probably going to have a field day with, and that is October Surprise.
Yeah.
People may or may not have heard of the October Surprise. So let me give you the basics on this. It's 1979. And the U.S. Embassy in Tehran is stormed by revolutionaries.
Yeah,
That sounds familiar.
They were students.
The revolutionaries?
It was the Iranian Revolution, which began in like October 1978, but then the people who overran the embassy were students.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's
They
all
were
part,
radical
it's part of the
students.
revolution.
But it is part of the revolution,
So
yes.
they technically are revolutionaries.
I guess they're revolutionaries.
American diplomats are taken hostage at this time, and it's November 4th, 1979 is the exact date.
Seriously, this sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
Well, that is probably because you are familiar with the story because of the movie Argo.
Yeah, Argo.
With Ben Affleck.
Something yourself.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. Why is it I always have references to Ben Affleck movies?
You just like him so
You love him
much.
so
really
much.
do.
You're in love with
weird.
him.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
You keep talking about Batman versus Superman. You won't shut up about it.
Okay, well, so these people have been taken hostage, and this is where the surprise portion of the story comes in. Because if you remember U.S. history, you will know that 1980 was a presidential election year,
Yeah.
and Jimmy Carter was running against that silly actor, Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
knows who that guy is?
Yeah.
He was the governor.
Yeah,
Former governor of
exactly.
California.
Well, in a bid to stop Carter from pulling the political version of a rabbit out of a hat, according to the conspiracy of the October Surprise, what the Reagan campaign does is they get a hold of the Iranians and they say, hey, don't release those people no matter what. And that way Carter can't come out as the hero and cinch the election at the end, which would be in October, which would make an October surprise.
I guess I would, not to...
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to lean into it. I guess the argument there would be then that Reagan was already selected by, if we're talking about it, there's like this weird octopus thing,
Yeah.
right? That the octopus had already selected that Reagan was going to be president,
Well,
and therefore
or
supported.
hated Carter so much they were willing to. But yes,
but
one
that's
or the other.
But it's
But-
the same thing either way.
But I mean, these alleged contacts between the Reagan campaign didn't take place until, they didn't start right after the hostages were seized. We're talking like, late summer.
Right,
maybe
but when it
after the
was
fall,
when it
you know?
was clear that if Carter was able to negotiate the release, that he would become president
Because he
again.
would be the
No, he
hero.
would be he would. But here's the thing: is that Carter probably would not have been reelected even if the hostages had been freed. If they'd been freed early on, then yeah. But this thing drug on and on.
Right, but I
And-
just mean that
Now, the theory is that, if Carter had, that is the basis of the October surprise theory, is that if the hostages had been freed, let's say in October, then...
Or months beforehand, yeah.
Well...
A month beforehand, something like that.
Somewhere
beforehand. In that time, he would have been...
Yeah, exactly. But no, he would not have been, I'm pretty sure. Because here's the deal. Carter almost certainly wouldn't have been reelected anyway. Because the thing about it is that the hostages are freed, but that doesn't make... The thing about it is it grated on the American people very much. That
444 days.
It did, yeah. And, you could argue that his hands were kind of tied. That's fair, but... The hostage thing doesn't just go away if the hostages are released. The other thing is the economy was in the crapper. The Iranian Revolution had caused oil production to drop worldwide, which had caused oil prices and gas prices to go up. There were shortages. There were gas lines at gas stations. In the year 1980, the average inflation rate was 13.5%. Unemployment was really high. Carter was not going to win that election.
It was bad.
Now, but here's the deal. If you want to read some really good research about the October surprise theory, read a book called Guests of the Ayatollah by Mark Bowden, who you may have heard of one of his books at least. He wrote Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, great book, by the way. And Guests of the Ayatollah is really good, too. Mm-hmm. And he went to Iran, and he interviewed tons of people, officials, and a lot of the students that were hostage takers and everything. And he asked them about the October surprise, and they all laughed. They all just said, no, our motivation was not anything to do with the Reagan campaign. Our motivation was we really hated Carter's guts. No, and they did, and it's not rational on their part. But for them, this was Bowden's words. For those people, Carter was the personification of the great Satan. For that reason, they hated him so much that they held on to the hostages until Inauguration Day. When Reagan was inaugurated, they let the hostages go because it was a final insult to Carter, a final thumb in his eye.
Yeah.
And last of all, they really loved the idea, before and after the election, they really loved the idea that they were the force that was toppling the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
And they kind of got him, they really liked that idea a lot.
I think there's definitely something to be said for movements in general. The people who are on the ground, the boots on the ground, saying like, no, we're empowered by this thing. But if there's something that is managing to control the way that those boots on the ground are viewing whatever issue they're protesting or whatever, I think oftentimes that it's not recognized, right? So it's totally possible that in situations, right, you'd be like, well, that's not our motivation at all. It was this thing. But it was like, well, but where did you hear that it was that thing?
I'm a little confused. So you're saying they were confused when they thought that?
No, I'm not saying that they specifically were confused. I just mean in general, those movements, it's very interesting to watch how the boots on the ground people who are actually doing the protesting and the holding and all of that stuff are influenced by... You have the impression in your brain as one of those people, because I've been one of those people, who say, it's just, this is the movement, and we're all there.
That you're operating under versus the belief of the actual group. Is that where you're headed?
I guess I'm saying
I'm a little lost as well.
You're all lost. It's okay. I'm saying that the people who are doing the thing, who are acting out the movement, very often are influenced by some overarching something. And right now it's really easy to kind of say, well, it's this social media movement. But there's often the really loud voices of people who are more...
Spokespeople?
Yeah, the spokespeople almost of that movement that influence where that movement goes and what focus it takes. Mm-hmm. And it's always really interesting to look, even before social media, where those influences came from and how they may not be as pristine as many people think they are.
Got it.
Did that clarify where we're going?
A little bit.
Sort of, kind of. Yeah, interestingly about the students, the government itself that eventually came out on top was Islamist, but the students themselves were actually left-wingers for the most part. They were kind of socialist types and everything, but they were united with the Islamists in hating the Shah.
The Shah, yeah.
Right.
They wanted the Shah out of power.
And the Shah, yeah. And, of course, they were united in hating Americans, even though actually they treated the hostages reasonably. Not perfectly, but they didn't...
Treated pretty good.
They didn't...
Better than we treat them often.
It's not like they killed anybody, and actually let one guy go because he was sick.
So my argument is phrasing it kind of in this broader conspiracy that we're talking about in the octopus, that it would be really easy for an octopus agent to influence the movement itself. So
possible.
Let's move forward.
Yes.
Before we get too far off on this.
Okay.
Because the point is that for the theory of the October surprise, it is, of course, as we've said, that Reagan was involved, or the Reagan administration in some version was involved and negotiated with them to not let the hostages go until it was all done. And the proof
that is the
proof
theory,
of the people who believe in this theory is that, as you said, when they got let go, because the hostages were let go on the 20th of January 1981, which is also inauguration day in the United States.
Yeah, and that's one thing that kind of actually shoots a hole in the whole October surprise thing, because if the Reagan campaign had approached them and just said, "Hey, just hang on to them just after Election Day, and then you can do whatever you want," then they probably would have let them go. Because here's the deal, and then Bowden talks about this again in his book, Guests of the Ayatollah, in case you didn't hear it the first time. He talks about this. He said that students actually, by the time the election was approaching, they were actually getting kind of sick of being prison guards. They were not that thrilled with it anymore.
Terrible job.
Yeah. The newness was wearing off of it, and also the Iranians really badly wanted some spare parts because they had a lot of U.S. planes, for example, warplanes and stuff, and we're not giving them those spare parts, and so they had some motivation to actually let the hostages go earlier than they did. The only possible explanation for them holding the hostages until January 20th was pure spite towards Carter. That is the only possible explanation.
Let's move forward.
Can we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we have another big one.
Oh, yeah, there's
We got
another good
several
one.
to go. We're going to move to the next thing, which is actually connected to the October surprise.
Oh, my
It is?
God.
How's it connected?
According to the theories, it's connected to the October surprise. Let me clarify it that way, okay?
Okay.
Next thing we're going to talk about is the Iran-Contra affair. I think most people know about this to one degree or another.
A lot of people
I do not
don't.
recall.
That's why I know it, because I grew up with that phrase, and I use that phrase. You ever want to get it? As a kid in high school in the 90s, if you wanted to get in trouble, you use that phrase. Because I used to use that as my way out all the time, and I got into a lot of trouble for it. Okay.
So should I sum this up? I think I can do it pretty concisely.
Yeah,
The Iran-Contra affair, okay, because I remember it.
Yeah, I do too, but go for it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So the Iranians, after the hostage crisis, they managed to contrive to get some more American hostages. I think they bought, most of them have been kidnapped in Lebanon, I think, and they just bought them basically and had them shipped to Iran, literally in boxes. And they were holding these guys. Meantime, in Central America, in Nicaragua, the Sandinistas came to power. They were a bunch of communists, and then an opposition group arose, which were called the Contras, which were, basically
freedom fighters.
An insurgency against them. And so the Reagan administration wanted to get the hostages back. And of course, even though ostensibly they had a no negotiations, no ransom policy for that kind of thing, of course, governments usually honor those only about part of the time, not all the time. And so they figured out a sneaky way. The Iranians were under an arms embargo, so we sold them arms, and in order and also to get our hostages back. So they got guns, we got money and hostages, and then the funds were diverted to the Contras in Central America. So that was the whole thing. A little bit of illegality, but, they were trying to get the hostages back and all that stuff. And so it was scandalous, but yada, yada.
And what people do is they say, when we talked about in October Surprise, people say that the Reagan campaign negotiated some kind of future payoff.
Uh-huh.
That's what the payoff was. They're saying, well, what happened in the Iran-Contra affair, that was the payoff. So it proves it anymore.
It actually doesn't prove it, though.
It doesn't.
Because
I want to point out here, this is an important point so that people don't get confused. At the time of Casellero's death, the Iran-Contra affair was basically done and over with.
Yeah, it was.
So it's not as its outcome had already happened. So he knew about that. What hadn't happened was the official. You're gonna love this. Don't freak out, Devin. The official government investigation into the October surprise, which officially said that there was officially no official conspiracy.
Officially.
Yeah.
Officially.
Yeah.
But that could also be the octopus at work.
I just love it when a government body comes out and says, "Oh no, we didn't do anything."
Yeah, I know.
Right? Because that's essentially what we're saying, right? We're saying that this government body came out and said this government body didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, but of course,
There were so many freaking
But we do it.
claims
I mean, it
made.
happens all the
But here's the
time.
problem with the October Surprise is, as Joe said, the facts don't substantiate it. There was
No,
a
they
lot
don't.
of claims
Absolutely.
that were made
Yeah.
that were bogus.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we need to keep going.
No. One last thing. The actual October surprise theory originated with a guy named Gary Sick, who was a former advisor to Jimmy Carter.
Oh.
Do you think perhaps this guy might have had
of
an axe
course.
to grind?
No.
But yeah, and so, but also the idea that they were the Iranians were promised some sort of quid pro quo by the Reagan campaign. Well, that's absurd, because why would the Reagan administration bother to keep their promise? They don't need to. Nations break their promises all the time.
It's true.
And so their motivation, obviously, they wanted to get the hostages back, and they wanted to get some strings-free cash to give to their buddies, the Contras. That's more than enough motivation right there.
Yeah. Should we move to the next link in the chain here?
Oh, I don't know. This
Yeah.
one's kind of boring.
I don't really care about this
Well,
one.
Yeah.
this one's boring. It'll be easy then. We are going to now move on to the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. Great name. Really, really exciting name. They're
BCCI.
sexy, as Joe would say.
Yeah.
It's a sexy name. In his hunt for the octopus, this is one of the things that Danny came across. BCCI was an international bank. It was founded in 1972. Within 10 years, it was worth over 20 billion US, had 400 or over 400 branches. They were in 77 or 78 countries. They were the 7th largest bank in the world. They're friggin' huge.
In 10 years.
In 10 years.
That's not nothing.
Nice.
That's not nothing. Well, they came under scrutiny in the 80s because there were some concerns that maybe they weren't actually properly being regulated.
Weird. It's like they raised to the 7th most popular bank in the world in 10 years.
Which is very strange. So
Yeah.
maybe we should look into this.
That's strange when you got all this octopus money flowing into your coffers.
Well, that's the thing, is that the investigations into BCCI found that there was a massive money laundering and a ton of other financial crimes being committed. And somehow, and it's described as illegally, but I didn't actually do enough reading on BCCI to know what the illegal part was, because this is financial stuff